Hey team, hope you're all doing well. I got a great question from Pierre Cleary 4228 who said, "Hey, could you do a video on peak age and decline age for the marathon? Would love to hear your insight. I'm 28 and wondering how far I can go." The good news is, Pierre, you are at the right age, and really a lot of runners out there do set their new personal record or their lifetime best for the marathon distance in their early to mid 30s. Some athletes out there, and you may be one of them, that's perhaps watching this video, aside from Pierre, that's maybe in their 40s and 50s that set their new personal best in their 40s and 50s. I PR'd when I was 31 years old when I ran the 2007 California International Marathon. And ironically, even my bib number was 31 at the time, at that same time that I ran that race. But again, it really comes down to your preparation. In your case, you're 28. I think that's the best age, really. For most marathon runners, I think I didn't run my first marathon until I was 25. But I do think that in most cases, the peak age is usually around anywhere from 30 to around 34. Again, this is going to vary, and I think the decline age, again, it varies from athlete to athlete. Really, for me, my last marathon that I raced in and ran a decent time was when I was 37 at the 2013 California International Marathon. So I PR'd at 2:19:35 when I was 31, and then ran 2:32:55 at the same race when I was 37. And so after that, it was really after I hit 40. That's when I started to see some significant declines, especially when it comes to the marathon distance. So I really think one of the great things about our sport in this particular distance is you can really run some great times in terms of your peak ages. Again, the marathon, some athletes are running world-class times in their early to mid 40s. Okay, and again, it depends on your background and your preparation, how patient you are, because again, sometimes in your case, you're 28, maybe you won't hit your PR for the marathon until you're 38. Again, it's just a matter of how long you're willing to endure and how excited you are in the sport. Okay, but in the marathon distance, peak ages, and again, this is just my own experience. Peak ages for me, at least personally, was 31. And I was able to still see some relatively competitive efforts up until I was up until 37, up to around 38 years old. I did start to see decline when I was around 39 to 40, and I started and over 40 years old. So I really think that as you prepare for your races, especially for the marathon distance, continue to practice training at and below your goal marathon race pace sufficiently. Longer buildups is always going to set you up for success, regardless of what age you are. If you're training for a marathon, my recommendation is give yourself 5 to 6 months. Because I always look at what did the top distance running coaches say. And for me personally, one of my mentors was the late Dr. Joe Vigil, PhD. He had a PhD in exercise physiology, and he did say in his book, Road to the Top, that it does take about 28 days for the body to adapt to any stresses that you're placing on it. So I always tell athletes, if you're having a real difficult time and you're training for the marathon and you're having a hard time doing a 10-mile tempo run, look at how you've set up that. Have you just jumped into doing 10-mile tempo runs? You need to first adapt to what it feels like to do a 2 to 3 mile tempo run. Do that for 3 to 4 weeks, then move to 5 to 6 mile tempo runs. Do that for 3 to 4 weeks. And then again, you're giving yourself sufficient time to adapt to that specific duration and that specific intensity that you're trying to run at. Okay, because it does take time. The body produces so much inflammation, so much lactic acid, and when we're running at these higher efforts, running at around, anaerobic threshold is 88 to 92% of max heart rate. So again, you have to stress the body, especially when you're training for the marathon, and it's not going to get any easier the older you get, for sure. I noticed that I was able to run Looking back, uh, 2007 was my peak year for the marathon. I ran, again, I mentioned that 219, but I had a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of ups and downs, running 230s several times, 232 several times, 236 a few times. And then, 4 years later, in 2011, when I was, 35 years old, I ran 226. And then 2013, when I was 37, I ran 232. So you see there was a gradual slowdown. But again, because this race is so long and requires so much energy, requires so much time and effort for us as athletes, you have to you have to have a belief in delayed gratification. You have to have a long-term vision, especially when it comes to the marathon. But the good news is with the marathon distance, really, you can set new PRs in your 30s, in your 40s, and for some athletes, they go out in their 50s and they run faster in their 50s than they did in their late 20s. Okay, so really, it's really about persistence and patience, maintaining your tenacity as you prepare for your races. It's also about how you set up your training. Again, if you're running too much aerobic mileage, it's just going to make you a superior long, slow distance runner. So again, if you're trying to run a faster marathon and you're not just trying to start and finish a marathon, which is still a huge success, because again, there are a lot of people out there that have the idea, man, I would really love to run a marathon, but maybe, stresses and other things in life, they never get out there and do it. Or maybe there's other things. Maybe it's psychological. We all deal with things. But again, if you're setting up your training properly and you're not running too much of your volume too aerobically, you're going to get to a point where you're running a little bit more of your mileage, maybe around 15 to 20% of your mileage anaerobically, and then the remainder at aerobic effort. So again, you're mixing up running at very fast efforts where you're really stressing the body's energy systems. You're doing more quality running versus just easy aerobic mileage. If you do a combination of this, you're going to succeed. But again, everybody's story when it comes to the marathon is different. I've seen athletes that set PRs in their 60s. I've seen athletes out there that drop over an hour off their marathon time. So again, this is an event where, of course, in your case, Pierre, you're only 28. So trust me, you have several years. I would bet that your peak age is really, you can run another decade and you're going to get to a point where you're running at your peak ages, in my opinion. Again, it's just going to vary from athlete to athlete. For me, it was like I really started like I mentioned, I started seeing some significant decline in my capability to race once I hit 38 and higher. And looking back, really the fastest effort that I dropped after running that 232 when I was 37 was a 55-20 10-mile time when I was 38. So that was in 2014, but 7 years prior to that, in 2007, I ran through the 10-mile mark in my PR for the half marathon in 50:54. So approximately about 5 minutes faster than I raced in 2014 as a 38-year-old. Okay, so there is significant decline when it comes to as you age. But just be patient with yourself, Pierre. Like I mentioned, continue to train at and below your goal marathon race pace. Get that long run out to around 22 to 24 miles in length. A lot of runners will do maybe 16 to 17 miles. And again, and some set PRs running 16 to 17 miles for their long run. My belief is if you get out to around 22 to 24, I think that's the sweet spot. Anywhere from 20 to 24 miles for your long run really will help you, and not getting in the habit of running slow and easy every single weekend. Okay, you're trying to race a marathon. Running a marathon and racing a marathon are not the same thing. Okay, get in the habit of alternating faster, varied pace long run one weekend, followed the next weekend by a recovery long run. Okay, Remember the importance of adaptation and giving yourself about 48 hours of recovery, easy jogging between each one of your hard workouts before you do the next hard anaerobic workout. And you may need, and I mentioned this in other videos for other athletes, you may need up to 3 days, up to 72 hours of easy jogging, especially after you do those harder, varied pace long runs. Okay? The marathon, the marathon is definitely a long-term. You have to have that long-term vision if you really want to do well at it. Okay. For me personally, I started running when I was in 1992 as a 15-year-old. It really took me from 1992 all the way up to 2007 for me to set my lifetime best for the marathon distance. So I started running when I was 15. I didn't PR for the marathon until I was 31 years old. Okay. So that's just an example. If you're really going to put all of your emphasis in succeeding in the marathon distance, know that it's going to be a long-term approach, a long road, and have fun with it, and get faster and jump in some shorter races as well, some 5-mile races, some 10-mile races, 25Ks, half marathons, before you jump into doing marathons. And you're at the right age. I mentioned I debuted at the 2002 New York City Marathon when I was 25 with a 2:43:36. So again, wherever you're at, wherever you start at, maybe some of you start at 4 hours, maybe some of you out there run 2:30 in your debut. Okay, wherever you're at, just stay consistent and believe in yourself, and know that really peak ages are around 30 to 34 to 35. You start to see some decline after 40 years old. Again, that's my background with it. I'd love to hear where you all are at. I'd love to also hear, where were you all at when you set your new PRs in terms of your age? Were you in your 30s? Were you in your 40s, 50s? You'll see from the comments that athletes that watch this video, you'll see the differences. And some athletes will PR in their late 20s, like where you're at. Some will PR where I was at when I was 31. And others will be in their 50s setting new PRs. So that's the great thing about the marathon distance, is you really can drop some great efforts later on in life, especially in this particular event. Hope this answered your question, Pierre. If you have any other questions or concerns, any of you, leave a comment below, and I will definitely reach back out and respond to you. Check out the resources below or on RunDreamAchieve.com if you're trying to set a new PR. I have a lot of resources there, from the running courses that I created to training plans, or if you want to jump on a consultation call, or if you want to work one-on-one with me as a coach, feel free to reach out to me and check out the resources there. So thanks so much for your support, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.